Okay, welcome everybody to the District Metchosin Council meeting of May 27th, 2024. Thank you, Councillor Donaldson, for the territorial acknowledgement. Before we begin, I'd like to make a tribute to one of Metchosin's most dedicated, distinguished, and generous residents, Mr. Chris Pratt, who is 100 years old today. Chris was born on this day in 1924, and the family moved to Metchosin just before Chris's first birthday. This was a time when Whitties, the Weirs, the Helgesons, all the Metchosin pioneer families were all active farmers. As a young man, Chris joined the Navy, and he was part of the first intake of the Naval Cadets at Royal Roads in 1942. Upon graduation, Chris was deployed as a midshipman on the HMS Anson, which was a battleship stationed near the Orkney Islands. According to Chris's biography, the Anson was tasked with protecting the wartime convoys bound for MEASC in Russia. Following the war, Chris continued with the Navy, serving our country in many roles for 36 years. He retired with the rank of captain and was presented with the Order of Military Merit. As you can imagine, Chris has traveled extensively and held many interesting roles. Among those was a 2-year stint with the administration of the Metropolitan Opera in New York City. It was when he left that job that in 1983 he was able to return and settle in Metchosin. We're all blessed with the benefits of Chris's dedication to the community. He's been involved in Metchosin in many ways. At the Museum Society, the Parks and Trails Committee, the Heritage Advisory Committee, and he is currently a member of the Healthy Communities Advisory Committee. He has helped us understand our ecosystem by involvement with Metchosin Biodiversity Project and the Metchosin Foundation, of which he's a founding member and past chair. Chris has a long-standing association with Pearson College, hosting and getting to know many of the students from around the world. Chris has 4 children, 7 grandchildren, and I understand that many of his family and friends were able to gather over the weekend to celebrate his birthday. On behalf of Council and the District, I want to pass on my very warm 100th birthday celebrations to Chris. Thank you. So with that, we have the agenda before you. We have numerous correspondence for 7A and 7B. These are the pink items on your table, so we'll put them with 7A and 7B. And if I forget, let me know. And then we will move to approval of the agenda with these amendments that I've just mentioned. So moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And presentations. I would like to welcome Chad Pacholik, the Logically Disaster Risk Reduction Climate Adaptation Project. Thank you. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me tonight. Pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk about, as you mentioned, disaster risk reduction, climate adaptation, a new project that is starting with the district. I'm with Logically Consulting. We're a disaster risk management firm local here. I reside and work on the lands of the Sonic people. Happy to do so and continue to learn from them. I'm going to do a bit of I'll call it an orientation of sort around disaster risk reduction and then get into the project itself tonight. There are no necessarily actions required, it's just for information for you today. I'm going to start with the one question quiz because I'm a jerk like that. So how many natural disasters do you think there were in British Columbia last year, 2023, just in the province? I made it a little bit easier. It's a multiple choice. Gallery, you can get involved if you want. And really it just starts with A, none, and then in increments of 5 all the way up to 16 or more. Give you a second to consider that. So who thinks there is no natural disasters in British Columbia last year? 1 to 5? No takers yet? 6 to 10? 10 to 15? 16 plus. Oh, now the hands come up. All right. I set you up a little bit for that question. The answer really is that there were none. And the reason I say that is because there is no such thing as a natural disaster. Disasters are a result of the decisions that we make and the ways that we develop and continue to develop. So it is a bit of a play on words and wordsmithing, but I do think the words that we use are really important, especially when it comes to talking about disasters. This is a conversation that's been going on since 1976 of trying to get out of the use of the word natural disaster. I encourage you as elected officials for the district to continue that movement. If you want to negotiate with me and figure out why I believe that so strongly afterwards, I can talk to you till you blue in the face about why there's no such thing as a natural disaster. So again, it's this idea that disasters are a result. They're a result of where we develop, of how we develop, what we build with, where we build, all of those things that go into creating the societies and the communities that we have before us. So when I talk about disaster risk, what the heck am I talking about then? There's a definition at the top from the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. But what I'm going to focus on is the 4 components of this so-called equation at the bottom. Now, if there's any engineers in the room, you're going to start twitching to try and put numbers in here. It's more of a theoretical, conceptual idea rather than putting numbers in. But it acknowledges that, yes, there are these hazards, the floods, the fires, the pandemics, the heat domes, all of these meteorological terms that we've learning over the last couple of years. The hazards happen. But if they turn into a disaster or not is the result of the vulnerabilities, the exposures, and the capacities, whether that's economic or social or environmental, all of these different things that make up our societies determine whether a hazard becomes a disaster. And that's what we want to dig into a little bit. So in 2015, there's this, the UN and 100 plus nations signed on to the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. I bring that up because they have 4 high-level targets or priorities, I think they call them, to try and achieve disaster risk reduction. And it starts with understanding the risk. What could happen in our communities that could harm us? From there, we need to figure out what is the governance that we can put in place so that we can reduce our risk, whether that's avoiding creating it in the first place or reducing what we created already. And we'll get into a little bit of that in a second. We then need to invest. Of course, these things aren't free, whether that's time, money, resources, etc. We need to put our effort towards disaster risk reduction. And then we need to be able to enhance our preparedness and build back better. So we want to just put like for like. If we know that it happened once, it would probably happen again if that same disaster happened. So we want to try and make sure that we're improving each time a disaster happens. We learn from it and we make sure that we don't make those mistakes again. The climate adaptation side of this really acknowledges that, as we all know, climate change is already happening, it's already impacting us, it's already having devastating results, and it's going to continue to get worse. Even if we make all the changes that we know that we need to, some of those changes are already baked into the system. So how do we deal with that? How do we cope with the impacts of what our climate is going to present to us? And how do we reduce our contributions as a municipality, as a community, as a society to climate change so that we're not making things worse for ourselves and for the future generations. Disaster risk management, really 3 key pieces to that as a kind of way of approaching it. The first, again, I mentioned, avoid creating new risks. We don't want to continue to make the decisions that will put future people, buildings, society at risk. So we want to avoid creating that new. We want to reduce the existing risk that has already been created, either intentionally or not. You know, we have better information now what we should do, so we can make those changes. And there's all kinds of funding streams. I heard about some of them in the past presentation, that work is already ongoing with that. And then manage the residual risk. We're never going to get to a point as a society where we have zero risk. That's just not a reality. And that's where the emergency program comes in to try and pick up the pieces, if you will, when something happens and help people get through that emergency. Yeah, I'll stop there. So, the project itself, I'll jump into here. It's led out of the emergency program. It's funded by the Union of British Columbia Municipalities through the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, they have a stream specifically for disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation. The project is designed to span all 4 of those Sendai priorities so that we're trying to tackle as many of them as possible and get as far forward as we can. The project itself is broken into 4 components. The first is a risk assessment, and that's probably going to be the bulk of the work to really understand those 4 components of disaster: the hazards, the vulnerabilities, the exposures, and the capacities. Previously, risk assessments, they were very narrow, I would say, in their approach. They'd look at a hazard, what was the probability of that happening, and what would be the consequence if it did happen. And that was kind of the end of it. It was a little bit of a mathematical equation, and we went along. Now, the general practice in the industry is expanding. We're acknowledging all of those different components of risk. We need to put that into our risk assessment so that we know what are the things that could cause damage against the result of our decisions. So what has those results been? Once we have that information, we can then start putting together some of the strategies. What can we do about our level of disaster risk? We now know what could happen. What can we do about it is that second piece. Thirdly is community engagement. Throughout the project, we will engage with staff. I anticipate we'll probably be coming back to council at some point and providing you with information and engaging with the community as well to try and gather the information. As well, we're going to basically provide a bit of a roadmap and a program that we can continue to engage with the public, continue to provide education and awareness of what does climate change mean for Metchosin? What are the climate risks for Metchosin? What are the disaster risks that could happen so that we can all as a society and an all of society approach try and reduce our risks? The last thing, as I'm sure you know, last year the province came up with a new Emergency and Disaster Management Act. There are some of the requirements of municipalities are the same. There are a number that are new as well. So we'll do a bit of a review of that act and against what Metchosin has in place already and be able to report out on that. So those are the 4 components of the project. I'm wrapping up, I promise. A few closing thoughts. One, again, disasters are not natural, they're result. I think I've said that enough now that I can stop saying it at least for these 10 minutes. We're facing what I call nonlinear risks. We can't just look at what is the fire, what is the flood, and treat them as if they're individual. We're seeing, droughts with heat waves that lead to floods, that, it's all these compounding and the cascading, one leading to the next to the next. We're also entering a time where we can't forecast like we could, or maybe we just understand that we can't forecast like we used to. And so we don't necessarily understand how much hotter is it going to get. We know it will get hotter. How much wetter will it get in the winters? We know it will get wetter, but our confidence in those numbers is less. Our requirement to make decisions still is the same. So we have to make better decisions with less information in some cases. The fact that approaching disaster risk reduction cannot and should not be a solitary endeavor. As much as I'd love to sit here and tell you that Metchosin can do it alone and you don't need any help, it's much bigger than any one organization, one level of government, one community. It requires the work of many. And so whether that's advocating to different levels of government, taking action yourselves, educating the community, engaging with the community, making sure that they're prepared and know what they need to do. So there's lots of different moving pieces. It really is a team sport in this case. Like pretty much every other one of the big social issues these days, there's an urgency of action. We need to try and get ahead of the ball. We're already behind it. We've seen that through the floods, the fires, the heat waves, and all the impacts that those have had in the recent times. So we do need to act with a sense of urgency. And I know that's a bit of a broken record right now with pretty much every issue that's put in front of you, I'm sure. My last slide. Just a reminder that this disaster risk reduction climate adaptation, sorry for my abbreviations, project, it's meant to ground and provide the foundations for municipalities to move forward. It will build upon, we're aware of the climate action plan that was put in place last year, so we'll build on that. We're not going to obviously duplicate. We want to make sure that those efforts are raised and moved forward. We'll be engaging with staff and the community, and you're going to hear from me again in front of you with hopefully some more data and information near the end of this project. Again, nothing required of you at this point other than to receive for information. I appreciate your time. Available, obviously, for questions if you have any you want to clarify.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So Council, do you have any questions for Chad? Councilor Shuka.
Thanks for your presentation, Chad. The timelines, and could you give a sense of what you're going to deliver at the end of the day?
Yeah. So first timeline, targeting it'll be this fall. I don't have a hard timeline. We're still scoping a little bit of it. I would estimate September, October is my guess at this point, but I don't want to put myself on that too heavily yet.
Okay.
The deliverables, there will be a written community risk assessment that is put together. There will be a number of the disaster risk reduction strategies. So basically a menu of options of what we can do as a community to reduce our risks. The engagement, there'll be a number of sessions that are put forward. We'll do some piloting with some of the things that we're proposing to engage with the public, and then a program, like I say, a bit of a roadmap of here's how you could move forward and continue it. In terms of the review against the legislation, I would anticipate it being a report and a bit of a summary of kind of here's where we stand.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome.
Great.
Councilor Rapp.
You kind of answered some of that, but I just wondered how you're going about identifying the risks and Metchosin specifically.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so what I would say is we will probably focus less on the hazards itself and identifying the exact, the geoengineering of how much the flood levels, et cetera, like that. And we'll focus more on getting into the details of the vulnerabilities. Some of that will be looking at statistics and Stats Canada and whatever information we can draw. But we'll also be relying heavily on engagement with staff in the community to understand their lived experience and be able to put that into the analysis. It's an evolving art form, I'll say, of community risk assessments, because we're moving away as an industry from quantitative, scientific, not even scientific, engineering terms of a 1 in 100 flood or something like that, more to a lot of these qualitative features and functions of society. So there aren't necessarily best practices of how do we quantify that. What I will say is all of our team are involved with a provincial risk assessment that's currently going on, where they are redefining how the province is doing risk assessments, and will in turn be pushing that down to the local authorities of what the expectations and the tools that are available for them to do it. So it is a bit of a leading edge approach, and it's difficult to say exactly what we'll be doing, other than trying to pull some of those statistics and lean on some of those best practices that exist already. So I dodged the question a little bit, but not meaningfully.
Okay, anybody else? We've been told in Metchosin that our biggest risk, we've been told by climate scientists that our biggest risk in Metchosin is fire. And so with some of the data that you're able to provide and some of the good work that the fire chief is doing as well will help us make a case when we're going out and applying for grants for infrastructure such as water to the neighborhoods that are going dry. And so we're looking forward to your report.
Yeah, absolutely. If you allow me, one other thing that I'd say is, I always say it's regardless of which community I'm in, the biggest risk, I think, is an unprepared public. If we can get the public to be more prepared, then that allows the municipality the time to bolster the resources and the response. In terms of a hazard, though, I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Gray.
Chad, thanks for that, and thanks for the work that you're doing. You may have seen the report, I guess it was late last week, out of the federal government talking about things like biodiversity collapse within 8 years. I think municipal governments will be gone in 9 years or something like that. Just everything's going to fall apart. What are you thinking about those kinds of things? I mean, I guess we're preparing for the unknowns, but it sounds pretty horrible.
There's some pretty bleak projections coming out, aren't there? And I think, for me, what that falls into is what's being described as systemic risks. It's the systems that are collapsing at this point. And I think the pandemic provides a really great example of that, where, all of a sudden nobody could get toilet paper. Our supply chains all fell apart, and as a system globally, it fell apart. And I think that was perhaps I'm trying not to be the doom and gloom tonight, but a little bit of foreshadowing of some of the things that we can expect. And I think, as you say, the predictions that are coming out that are it's not way off in the future anymore. It's coming closer and closer, and we don't understand those tipping points that will happen that will bring that even faster so that the systems collapse. And I think we need to we acknowledge that, and I think part of the risk assessment will really talk about what are the vulnerabilities, and whether it is a flood, a fire, military conflict. A lot of them have the same impacts on the populations. So what can we do? Because in my opinion, I think a municipality has more ability to change the vulnerabilities, the exposures, and the capacities than they can impact the hazards. Now, there's exceptions to that, obviously. That's where the risk assessment will really focus on those components of how can we really understand that, so that whatever gets thrown at us in terms of a hazard or a system collapsing, we have a knowledge and understanding, so we can go, I know this. We can put the plans in place and figure out what to do.
Okay. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our fire chief for doing all the good work so far in helping us getting fuel off the ground and removed from our properties, preparing our constituents in recognizing that there are significant risks going forward. And with that, I just wanted to know, Fire Chief Dunlop, did you want to add anything to this?
Thank you, Chad, for coming out.
No? Okay, with thanks. Okay, with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay for the entire night, but you don't have to.
Thank you.
So we'll turn now to public participation. We have until 8:45 for public participation, 4 minutes per person. If you wish to speak at the microphone, please state your name and your road. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going first. Hi, I'm Sherry Davies. I live on Neil Road. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor for having her tea that she has. I think it's once a month that you have it.
Yes.
So that means anybody in the community can come and discuss anything that's on their minds, and I was very pleased to go to that and felt very good about asking questions at that time. So my thing is all about the buffer lands, and today I'm thinking about the word time sensitive that was mentioned by yourself a while ago at the last meeting, to do with this has got to be a rush thing or something. I'm not really quite sure about what that is about, so that's concerning to me, what the big hurry is. And concerning the buffer lands, I feel that if Langford wants a park, they can plant it in their own development where the houses will be on their own land. It is basically there, if they want a park, which seems to be a pressure thing to have a park, it's not our problem if they want a park. That is theirs, and they should be dealing with it on their lands. I also feel that the buffer lands were never meant to be sold or developed. Its original intent was a buffer between Metchosin and Langford, with no mention of that being of any kind of park. The only park mentioned was the 3 parcels that were given to us by the First Nations. I'm interested to hear more from the working groups for further ideas concerning the buffer lands. And I just say let's continue to keep Metchosin rural as the surrounding area, which means Langford, encroaches on our beautiful Metchosin. And that's all I have to say for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon.
Mayor and Council, excuse me, Chris Moore, 4545 William Head Road. I'd like to speak briefly to 2 items on the supplemental agenda. First, to continue, the previous speaker relates to the discussion regarding our buffer lands. I'd like to say at the outset that I firmly believe that Avril Yocum is correct and that there is no rush in its resolution. However, if the political will is to move directly towards negotiations with the CRD, excluding a sale, of course, then one would ask that the district simultaneously explores options with other potential partners. Like, for example, as we pointed out, federal funding sources, they've already been identified, or possibly BC Parks, as they've already stepped up to the table in the contents of the Billston Creek corridor. That would just kind of be logical. Please keep these options open for discussion and particularly for action when the time is right, before we bed down with the CRD and possibly regret it. Item 1, how am I doing? Okay.
Go ahead.
Item 2, the second bit is from the very interesting item on the agenda of biosolids. Having little prior knowledge on the subject, virtually none, even though I spent some 27 years as a local organic farmer, I read the material as provided by the CRD, and I knew I needed some professional input. Typically, classic Metchosin, we are fortunate, as we often are, to have local access to a highly regarded chemical engineer who more than fills the bill. Known to you as Wesley Johnson. Wes has spanned a 40-year professional career in chemical engineering on an international basis. At my request, he reviewed the CRD info, and he had a number of rather pertinent questions. First off, for example, what are the qualifications of the authors of this report, i.e., are there any engineers involved in this? And he generally expressed concern significantly over missing information and a number of other aspects. With the response from Wes, I immediately went to Google and was somewhat dismayed and shocked with what I found there. Endless, absolutely endless scientific articles and reports about the unknowns of applying biosolids, and not just to agricultural land, but land in general. A number of these recent articles were published by very, very reputable sources, and they are recent. For example, The Guardian, even the US Environmental Protection Agency, and the list goes on. One interesting and very local publication caught my eye in the Times Colonist, and is dated March 21st in this year, and is referring to a lawsuit in the US. Company behind CRD Biosolids sued in the United States over health issues and animal deaths. This is before the highest court in the United States of America, and it involves a fair number, very large number of farmers in Texas, and also, where's the other state? I don't know, but this is worth a read. And I have a copy for each of you in case you missed it. I've certainly never saw it before. But anyway, it's the same outfit that's looking at Hartford, and I think that should raise huge flags. Okay, if the local aerial spraying wasn't the living end, this potential application of biosolids is akin to the end of the living, at least for what we know about it at this point in time. And if it's applied within our jurisdiction, it could be the final straw of our agriculture community, albeit it could take time. But there's an opportunity here. And that's to ban outright the use of this product within Metchosin and to get some press coverage on this as to your stand. We just spent $40,000 on an agricultural plan, pretty good one, I think. And this would be a great ploy, and you can get the coverage. The two people who wrote this for the TC, they were the players that got our 2-year effort to bring back our calls to have some political influence, because nothing was happening until they published their front page story on it. These are good journalists, and it's quite evident in this article. We're fortunate to have them. But if you can get that, and I know you can get this kind of press coverage, it would be a easy, no expense ploy to enhance and promote our agriculture products. Food that comes from here, whether it be livestock or produce, has not been subjected to this stuff, providing it's from here. Anyway, and as I said, the authors of this article, which I will now leave with you, have served us exceedingly well previously. So,
Thanks, Chris.
Councillor Gray, would you pass those? Oh, and one for Bob.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak at the microphone?
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Luber. I live on Yield Road, and this is regarding the bufferland. First of all, I would like to commend, acknowledge, and thank Councillor Donaldson for standing up for her constituents. I also thank Councillor Shukin for giving me the opportunity to speak at the Community Planning Committee meeting of May 13th. You all need to know there's a lot of deja vu 2021 happening right now. Lots of rumors, increasing anger, etc. Moving along, regarding the motion that is coming forward tonight, there are 7 important points that need to be considered when each of you apply your vote to go forward with the CRD. I would like to think there are no foregone conclusions. I would like to believe this is as stated, to discuss the disposition and management of the bufferland. So my questions to you all are, number 1, am I upholding the 2017 land swap referendum? Number 2, am I willing to diminish the lands held in Metchosin by once again changing the municipal boundaries? Number 3, am I in favor of protecting the adjoining property owners, particularly in the South Lobe, from the urban sprawl and its many challenges? Am I willing to support costs for fencing or whatever is required to do this? Fencing would prohibit animal movement. Number 4, am I in favor of protecting the flora and fauna, some red listed, as well as all aspects of an ecological conservation area? Number 5, am I willing to accept the added costs of policing and fire protection? I've spoken of the risk before. Please keep in mind that as a regional park, the bufferland would be included on the CRD's website, opening the floodgates for even more risk. Number 6, am I willing to accept the risk that the CRD could flip, sell this land and provide housing right in our bufferland? Number 7, do I believe that the bufferland working group recommendations have been thoroughly assessed and fact-finding that the CRD is the right step to follow? As a bufferland working group member, discussing anything with the CRD was discouraged, but personally I think it would have been better at that level, of course no monetary factors involved, rather than at the political arena. I do not believe phases 1 to 4 have been adequately researched and adjudicated before taking the last resort option. Lastly, residents did not agree to a sale to the CRD in October of 2021. Petition of 550 approximate residents, that's about 10%, approved that. And our residents are passionate about the rural lifestyle here, and we want to protect this precious natural area. I understand this is a time-sensitive issue, as mentioned at the May 13th committee meeting. Is it the time sensitivity, or is it the staff and council wanting to take what they think may be the easiest route to complete an election promise of doing something, anything, with the bufferland? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Hello.
For those who don't know me, I'm Joe Percival, formerly a longtime resident of Metchosin, now happily returned. So here I am. I was a volunteer naturalist with the Capital Regional District for 30 years here at Woody's Lagoon Park. So this issue was brought up already. Biosolids is a particular concern and an interest to me. So many thanks to the council for hearing me out for a few minutes here. Okay, I'd like to begin with a quote. Let's say just a short description of the precautionary principle. When an activity raises threats of harm to human health or the environment, precautionary measures must be taken, even if cause and effect relationships are not fully established scientifically at the time. The core tenets of the precautionary principle are to take preventive action when uncertain, shift the burden of proof to proponents, explore alternatives to harmful actions, and require public participation in any decisions. Well, the biosolid issue is certainly becoming ever more present in all of our media that we have. The Times Colonist has covered it, the Goldstream Gazette, local radio, a lot of concerns being shown. The CRD is requesting at this stage public input into the first few weeks of June, I believe, at this stage, regarding this serious concern, and wishing to see how people feel about the increasing tonnage of sewage, sludge, essentially, that we are dealing with now because of our treatment system. Meanwhile, the CRD actually amended its original position, which was to not allow any spread of biosolids on any land in the region of Capital Regional District, that being agricultural or forestry land, recreational land, etc. They amended that act and have been spreading it at Heartland Road, as many of you may be aware. And it's so-called as a temporary measure until the details can be worked out further. Not surprisingly, many Saanich individuals, many residents of that community nearer to the Heartland dump, many farmers, supporters of the local food security, and stream keepers, and also, in addition, the Bouchard Gardens themselves have shown serious concern and raised their voices about their personal concerns about this. The CRD has contracted the corporate giant Sinagro to actually organize, manage, administer the biosolid situation for the Capital Regional District. Yet, in Texas at this very time, there are a number of lawsuits being launched against Sinagro by local citizens in the area of where the biosolid situation has come to a head. Farmers in particular, many of whom have lost livestock, and likewise families have been sickened in proximity to biosolids. So we have that ongoing in the courts, and to my knowledge, the last that I heard, the regional district had not formally requested any further explanation or details from Sinagro as to what is actually happening in Texas. And it seems to me that should be something definitely on the agenda for the regional district.
You've got about 20 seconds left.
I'm sorry?
You've got about 20 seconds left.
Oh, okay, all right. My wife and I have friends on the Olympic Peninsula, part of the Environmental Council over there. They've been struggling with the same issues. Likewise, we are at this time facing a potentially extremely serious threat to all life, human and non-human, through the usage of biosolids. So I please ask that the precautionary principle be taken seriously and be advocated for by the Council of Metchosin in order to do what the best we can to preserve the lands that we all love here in Metchosin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak at public participation?
Patty Whitehouse, Rocky Point Road, and now for something completely different. I want to make a sort of comment on the salubrious effects of living in a rural community and being active in it. Mayor Little, you gave a very nice tribute to our most recent centenarian, Chris Pratt, who is still active in the community in many different ways. And I had the joy and pleasure of attending the 100th birthday party of Bob McMinn in the Highlands, first mayor of Highlands, also still very active in the community. So if you want to live to be 100, live in a rural community and take part in it.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Hi, Beth Bacon, Metchosin resident. I'd like to talk on items 7A and 7B, and I've sent submissions in, so I'll just summarize what I'm asking of you. On the buffer lands, the two biggest problems I see are the possible intrusion, misuse, or overuse by the burgeoning population along our Langford border, and all the unknowns about the retention pond. What I'd like you to do about it is, for the short term, and I feel this is urgent, rezone the buffer land to park designation, and we understand from Mr. Payette that that would just cost between $5,000 and $10,000. Put up fencing, gates, and signage where needed. Direct the income from the land swap to the buffer land and services fund. Refer to the property as Park Reserve, sensitive area, no public access. Invite interested Metchosin residents to be volunteer park wardens who would walk the land on a regular basis. That wouldn't cost us any money, and it would help keep the property safe. Invite Metchosin volunteers with the right credentials to do a species inventory, and have the park reserve status continue for as long as it takes until we feel comfortable letting the public in. I don't object to talking to CRD to see what they could offer for protections for this land, because I think the protections are needed, and we don't have the staff, we have volunteers. So for the long term, we might deal with CRD or another organization that could guarantee the protections that we want. And the other thing is to look at the Mary Lake, use of the Mary Lake property as a model. They only let the public in at a gate between certain hours on certain days. And you can have a yearly membership, or you can pay to visit, or you could have a guided tour or something. But on other days, it's closed to the public and the wildlife gets a break. But anyhow, it's a very nice model, and that's in the Highlands, Mary Lake. It has a new name now, which I can't pronounce. Now I'd like to switch to talking about biosolids. I'm reading from a quote from Creatively United. Would you knowingly eat food, drink water, or breathe air that contains toxic chemicals and microplastics linked to cancer that are contained in sewage sludge from Victoria, BC's wastewater treatment plant? Right now, Forever Chemicals, which, true to their name, last nearly forever in our environment, such as PFAS and microplastics, as well as PAHS, whatever that is, lead, mercury, dioxins, and pharmaceuticals, are making their way into our air, water, and soil through the bioaccumulation of tons of these toxic chemicals that remain in the sludge after the wastewater from our homes, industry, business, and healthcare facilities is processed. I think in particular, it's not just the human poop that's the problem, but it's the chemicals. It's what goes down the drain in the hospitals, what goes down the drain from industry. We know it's bad. I hope you have watched the excellent video that I sent to you on produced by Creatively United for the Planet. And the main speaker and advocate is speaking from the point of view of Butchart Gardens. So what I'm asking council to do is to pass a resolution that there will be no spreading of biosolids, dried human sewage, in Metchosin. To use its influence, your influence, with CRD to see that there's no spreading of biosolids in the Capital Region District. And why they reversed that policy, I don't think that, I think they just need to go back to what they had. They said we wouldn't do that, we wouldn't spread it. Not here. To liaise with other districts and First Nation communities to ban the spreading of biosolids within their area of control. To push the provincial government to ban the spreading of biosolids in BC, and to push the federal government to ban the spreading of biosolids anywhere in Canada. Whatever you are willing to do, I urge you to please start now.
We're out of time, Bev.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I sent you something new that you have in your email, and I'm in favor of thermal or bio. I'm sorry, I'm in favor of burning the stuff and to make biochar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots more I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak this evening? Okay, we'll turn now to the council meeting. On page 5, we have the adoption of the minutes from the council meeting of May 6. Do I have any comments regarding this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adopt the minutes.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have adoption from the special council meeting of May 13th.
Move adoption.
Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And then we have receipt of minutes on page 9 of your council agenda. Councillor Donaldson, this is the Finance Committee meeting of May 6th.
Thank you. Move to receive the Finance Committee meeting minutes of May 6, 2024.
This is moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments? No? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The Community Planning Committee meeting of May 13th on page 13. Councillor Shukin.
Move receipt. Thank you.
Yeah, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then on page 19, Councillor Gray, we have the Environment and Natural Areas Committee meeting of May 13th.
Move receipt.
This is moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor F. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Thank you. And Councillor F., the Public Works and Protective Service Committee meeting.
Move receipt of the meeting of May 15th.
Moved by Councillor F., seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Let me just ask a question on that one through the chair. I wonder if we can ask the CEO, has there been any progress on the lease for commercial tenants at the school? You know, there's lots going on in terms of the main entrance design and the naming and that, but I'm wondering if there's been any progress made.
Yeah, CEO Payette, have there been any movements on getting some long-term lease holders for the remainder of the old school?
Thank you through the chair. I don't believe since the last time we talked about it, there's been any change. We have Mile Zero, we have the preschool, for sure.
Yeah.
And I believe that's it for long-term leases. But there's a number of daily bookings and rentals and things like that going on, but nothing long-term, I believe. I can't think of any. There was some discussion about potentially a college. Yeah, but we haven't heard much yet from there. I haven't anyway.
So are we advertising like with a leasing agent and that sort of thing? I don't know if we heard about that.
I'm personally not aware of if we're advertising. We're in this zone of getting people established that are now leasing, and then we have potentially a working group working on the front entrance and maybe redesigning that last classroom into usable space. So I don't know right now if we really need to market the building for long-term lease. I think what we're driving towards is a management plan and an understanding of the daily use of the building. So that's kind of our next focus. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I was asking Mayor Little simply because of the loss of revenue of the building of $37,500 a year for half of the year. So the sooner we can get at least, the better.
Councillor Schuster.
Very little, while Mr. Payette is here. Mr. Payette, is it true that the gym is being fairly actively used and there is a bit of revenue coming from that?
Yeah, the gym is being used by some groups. It's difficult this time of year because we're in between seasons. So some of the user groups would like to be outside, but it's still not quite right. But obviously we would like to rent out the gym more. And so, getting information on the website and getting the word out that the space is available, we're actively working on that. And I spread the word through my my network of people, and so does the fire chief. And hopefully, as we move along, we'll have more users in the gym.
Okay. Councillor Epp.
I just wondered if Chief Dunlop might have anything to add as far as the rental situation.
Thank you, Chief Dunlop.
Thank you. I don't have anything formal to report other than, the gym is constantly used every day by a lot of community organizations. So you might have Pearson College in there, and we do still do a lot of training in there, which the rental fee, the commercial rates have been posted, get charged back. Not the fire department ones, but commercial rates get charged back. So that's heavy on the weekends. And pickleball is probably the main user of the gym right now, but we're hoping to get some other plans going with some other sports in there as well. And mainly, so a lot of community groups more than anything else, I think, is what we're seeing in there.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, through the chair. So I've seen that there's some advertising for some markets and stuff out in the parking lot. Is there a fee to those bookings as well?
And not at this time, because those are all local community group users. So there's no fee for the parking lot. That's through MACA. That they have two events coming up that we've scheduled for. So
Just asking for clarity, because I know the markets are people who actually make money, profit.
yeah, that's a discussion that we're still trying to get that management plan and making sure that it's in writing how we're going to move forward so it's fair for everybody. Yeah.
So will there be a plan to move them maybe onto the field so that we can actually have parking for people who come to visit?
That is above my pay grade.
Because parking seems to be an issue, as we saw this weekend. There's not very many places for people to park.
Yeah, that would be part of that management plan. Yeah, sorry, I don't have an answer for that one.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So noted for CAO Payette. Okay, great. Okay, turning now to page 20. Did you want to?
Nope, I think we approved. Receipt of the minutes. Did we call the question?
Did we call? Yeah, we called the question, and then there was a question asked.
Great, thanks.
Okay, turning now to, we did the public works, right? Turning now to the mayor's report. So we have a report from Councillor Epp, and I'll start with my update, and then you can do it at the end. Is that okay? Okay. On May 4th, I attended the Battle of the Atlantic Memorial Services and Parade. Her Royal Highness Princess Royal, Honorary Commodore in Chief, Canadian Fleet Pacific, took the salute. It was a real honor to have the Princess Royal there. It was wonderful to meet her and her husband, Vice Admiral Sir Timothy Lawrence. The Honorable Janet Austin was there, and actually she was introduced as Jane Austen. She's the commander of the Royal Canadian Navy, the Vice Admiral Angus Topshee, commander of the Royal Canadian Navy, hosted the event at the Cenotaph at the Legislature. I also went to an event at Royal Roads University to announce the donations totaling over $3 million for 3 vital philanthropic funders. This is seed funds for research into ultra-deep geothermal through the Cascade Institute at Royal Roads. And so a lot of the money will be used in the research and the development of efforts in geothermal power, and supports its national commitment, our national commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. So that was really an interesting announcement, but also a rationale for the request for funding. On a lighter note, I was invited by Mrs. Trudine Wilson, leader of the Girl Guides of First Colwood, to talk to the Girl Guides about what's it like being a mayor, what's it like being a woman mayor, and future career paths for women in our region. This was on April 29th. It was an absolute delight to meet these young women in the community. So the future is great for these young women who participated in the Girl Guides. On April 30th, CAO Bob Payette and I attended an all-day symposium hosted by the Ministry of Public Safety and Solicitor General's Policing and Security Branch, and also by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police E Division. The major topic was the creation of a single, all-inclusive major crimes unit for Vancouver Island. More information on this unit will be provided to the municipalities in writing in the next 6 months, so we'll look forward to them fleshing this out a little bit more. Along with other...
Very little.
Yes.
Sorry, question on this. Did the RCMP give a rationale as to why they wanted to, I mean, I can think of some of the reasons.
Well, the rationale is that although Metchosin and the West Shore are covered by VMQ, the Vancouver Island Major Crimes Unit, so if there is a homicide in the region, we are covered under that unit. There are other districts and municipalities that are not, like Souk and some up north, and they've been asking for years to be included in VMQ. They haven't been able to accommodate within that framework, and so they're looking to expand that sort of VMQ plus model. We received a lot of statistics, and many of which you've seen before, but we didn't get to the actual how much it was going to cost us all. But it was a relief that they would it would be all-inclusive for Vancouver Island, which many of the other municipalities have been asking for.
Great, thank you.
So along with other West Shore mayors, I was invited to attend an oath ceremony and badge presentation at the depot, in the RCMP depot in Regina, Saskatchewan on May 13th. Troop 20 had just finished their 6-month training, and we were invited guests to their final ceremonies. This was an event that I've never attended before. It was quite a pleasure. It included the Sergeant Major's Parade, dismounted cavalry drill display, badge presentation, swearing-in ceremony, oaths of allegiance, office and secrecy. Superintendent Todd Preston and the West Shore mayors were escorted throughout the depot. We met many of the cadets at various stages of their training. The 6-month training program that they all have to go through is very comprehensive and intense. I got more of an appreciation for this 820 hours of training that includes applied police sciences, firearms, police defensive tactics, police driving, fitness drills and deportment, and detachment visits. The facilities and the personnel were quite impressive. So I was glad that I had the opportunity to see this. Regarding the CRD, the accessibility plan, our draft accessibility plan for the Capital Regional District has been submitted to the Accessibility Committee. I'm the liaison for that committee, and we had a meeting last week, so it was received for comment. Many of the comments were from members of the committee. They have lived experience. They were very pointed and very well received. Those comments will be addressed in the draft accessibility plan, and then it will be available for public consumption. And lastly, it's with great sadness that I announce that Adam Flint, some of you know, a View Royal resident and vice chair of the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice, has passed away. Adam was in his early 40s, had a massive heart attack. He was a fierce advocate for children and youth and was active on our committee since 2018. As chair of the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice, I had the honor of working with Adam. He was quirky and kind and thoughtful and funny, and very hardworking and a very positive attitude, and he'll be sorely missed. He was also an active member in the Movember campaign. He leaves behind 2 children and a young wife. I'd like to extend our condolences from the District of Metchosin to the family, his family, friends, and colleagues. There will be a service on June 29th for Adam. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Councillor F.
Thank you. I just wanted to discuss again the naming of the school. So we have a list of names. I'll just run them through. There is one missing, which is the Orca Community Center is missing, but otherwise it was the Old School Center, the Old School, Old Metchosin School, Orca Place, Our Rural Community Arts Space, Orcas, Orca Community Hub, the Hub, the Village Center, a Community Recreate Space, Metchosin Multi-Use Facility, Metchosin Arts Training Center, the acronym MATIC, Nootka Rose Center, Kinnikinnick Activity Center, Endeavour Community Hub, and Inspiration Activity Center. So those are the ones that have been submitted so far. And what I was asking, and open to other options as well, so I was just asking if councillors and the mayor would send their top 3 choices in that we could discuss at the next Public Works Committee meeting. And as I said, if there's any other ideas on it, I'm happy to hear them.
Okay, that's great. So at the next Public Works meeting, we'll discuss that. So I'm going to get their top 3 choices in to Councillor Epp. Okay. So on item number 7, business arising, on page 29 of the agenda, we have a business arising from the minutes to be considered by council at this meeting, the community planning and committee recommendations from May 13th. Councillor Shukin.
Thank you very much. Begin with Metchosin Community Day, and it's simply that council support the hosting of Metchosin Community Day on Sunday, September 8th, 2024. So.
Okay, this is moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Gray. Comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So Mayor Little, I will give credit to Councillor Gray, who noticed you were not at the meeting where the second motion that we were talking about here, or before us was, and I think we thought that it would be opportune to have a further discussion about this motion to a certain degree. So,
Okay. Do you want to start off this discussion?
yeah, and thank you very much. I do want to thank everyone for the comments made earlier today. I believe that should have been very clear to everybody that the only purpose for us, sorry, I won't say the only purpose, but the core purpose of us turning to the CRD was to see if we could work with them to develop a plan where the values of ecology and conservation were at the forefront. Now, whether we can do that or not is another question, but I didn't hear anybody around this council table say that the reason for us entering into those discussions was to leave it to the CRD to sell, to develop the buffer land, or to turn it into anything other than what the vision of this council has been in terms of, again, conservation and ecological preservation. So, I didn't hear anyone question that or counter that when we moved to bring this recommendation to council. The one other thing I want to say, though, is that the longer this, sorry, one other point, in terms of timelines, why the rush? I don't know if there's a big rush, but the one thing I will note is that it is likely to be at least a year from the time the Bufferland Working Group made its recommendations that we actually come to settle the question of what is the best approach for the bufferland. So that's a year, and I'm saying that likely we're bound to get a recommendation either from the CRD in terms of a sale or another option. It is going to take time. And then it is going to take time to implement as well. So that's years in the making toward getting us to some position where we feel safe in terms of the bufferland. Right now, it is not safe. If this discussion continues and there is another election and there's a change of council, that land is vulnerable to whomever's at this table. And right now, in its current zoning, it can be sold very quickly by another council. So again, I recognize the importance the public is putting in, again, the value that we put in conservation and ecology. The question is, who is best to deliver that? So I think that's an outstanding one right now. So one final thing I will say, the criticism that has been sent to us in terms of not looking closely at the Bufferland Working Group's recommendations, I think is absolutely fair. And I still support going to see and talking to the CRD, but I have a further idea if folks are interested in hearing that in terms of running down and actually testing the recommendations of the Bufferland Working Group, maybe doing the two in tandem. So, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this item?
Yes, we can.
Stare down.
Right, guess it's me. Yeah, I just, I know the Bufferland Working Group put a huge effort into coming up with their report, and I certainly respect them for that. I think what we haven't done as a council is we still have yet to make any decisions. We haven't really done anything with it, and I think this is a start to at least look in a concrete way at one of the options, even if it is at the bottom of the list. At least it's a start, and then we can find out about that, and then we can either look further or we can just discount it and move on to something else. But I feel that this is one way that we can actually start taking some action, which will lead to a decision about what we can do that's the best for that land and protecting it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from both you and Councillor Shukin is you'd like to work concomitantly moving forward with discussion with the CRD, making no promises, finding out more information, and also moving forward with some of the other recommendations on the feasibility of those. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, thank you for that segue, Councillor. As it was in the report, that the priority was from the working group was the first 4 phases to be addressed, and that anything to do with a third party would be the last. So not to start at the bottom, but to actually work through the recommendations. I'm perplexed as to why we would do it backwards, but I would like to see us do it certainly in tandem and address those 4 phases and go through them thoroughly and not wait any longer and do it conclusively, which we've yet to do.
Okay. Councillor Gray, do you wish to weigh in?
Sure, you may have taken a look at the tapes, what we talked about the last time you weren't here, so we did cover a little bit of ground. And I'm quite interested to hear what you might have to say, just because we were missing at the meeting. So for me, like, I don't recall any structured conversation about the Bufferland Working Group's recommendations around this table. So I'm a little, except that we committed $25,000 in our budget process to do a buffer land management plan. When I read the November 21 Bufferland Working Group report, it only has been shared with the public, but it should be available. The goals were a natural sanctuary or ecological reserve, no multi-use trail, manage access with fencing or vegetative barriers, enforcement of that limited access, partnership with academic institutions, and then creating, if possible, a Friends of the Bufferland Working Group with an estimated cost of $25,000 to $50,000 per year for maintenance. And that report then went to staff to sort of develop further. But I guess I'm left wondering about, do we actually support that? Or do we support something else? Or what do we around this table want to see? We hear the word green space a lot, but it hasn't been defined. So we have the ideas, but we haven't ourselves made any kind of commitment to those ideas. I think, though, I'll pick up on Councillor Epps' point of making it real. Like, so the discussion with the CRD starts to do that, certainly. But I, like others, want to see us not put all eggs in one basket and follow up a little bit with what the Bufferland Working Group was talking about. So I have an amendment for the motion when we're ready to when somebody makes a move on the motion itself.
Okay, before we get to an amendment, let's, Councillor Shukin, do you wish to comment on the $25,000?
Yeah, the only thing, thank you very little, the only thing I wanted to mention with that is I based on what I'm understanding staff workload is right now and all the other priorities they have, I would suggest a move to retain a consultant to do a study that digs deeper into the Bufferland Working Group's recommendations and also the input that we had on November 7th. I think that would be an appropriate use of the money, and that would fulfill step 1 of the recommendations, which is to test more closely the resource and capabilities that the district could bring to that concept of the protected ecological buffer. Mm-hmm. So again, just sorry, in summary, we allocated $25,000 and I think we should put it to use.
Okay. So would it be your recommendation that we bring this back to community planning and have a more fulsome discussion on that document, the Bufferlands Working Group options, so that we can have a discussion at that point? Would that be a more informed decision process?
I disagree a little bit with Councillor Gray on this, because we did talk about it on November 7th. We had the plan before that. And I don't know if reviewing, again, I defer to the rest of Council's wisdom on this, but I don't know if going back and looking at that is going to be super helpful. I would suggest, I think we could, there's no harm in doing it, but I think the next step in getting information from people who have experience in developing parks and plans and who can reality test the concept that the Bufferland Working Group put forward, I think that would be a better use of our time, my sense anyways.
Mm-hmm. I do understand your caution that things take time, so if we start discussions with CRD on what kind of partnership would be amenable to, first and foremost, Metchosin, but also CRD, it would take time. And so that I understand that timeline. as co-chair of the Bufferlands Working Group. Councillor Donaldson, what do you suggest?
I would suggest that we actually, as a council, work through the recommendations that the working group did put together, because we have not had a full discussion on any of those phases. And I don't believe our staff has had an opportunity to do that either.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to get our head wrapped around it before we bring in some consultant.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Councillor Shukin, would you entertain on the community planning portfolio readdressing where we left off at the November 7th meeting, since we had a discussion, but not a fulsome discussion? Some members don't remember it, so I think it'd be great to
Admittedly, it was a bit of a messy meeting.
That's
So-
okay, that's okay.
But,
it's-
yeah, that would be good.
Yep. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, and it's not so much that I don't remember it, it's that we haven't passed any resolutions at council confirming or not confirming the directions that are here and the vision and the goal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, at the mayor's tea on Thursday or Wednesday, when it was this last week, there was about 22 people, not one supported us even talking to the CRD. And I think that is left over from the last administration where it wasn't done in a good way. But I have to be mindful that there are many people opposed to this. And when I said, well, we've got to be able to manage this, and one participant said, what do you got to manage? We don't manage our other parks. We do. The Parks and Trails Volunteer Committee does manage our parks. The caveat was what I was trying to explain is that on the border of our other Metchosin parks, there's not going to be 3,000 other residents that are going to want to recreate with their dogs somewhere. And so instead of jumping in their cars, they'll want to go somewhere. And if they see green space over the fence, the temptation will be that they will want to go there. So that I'm mindful that we have a commitment, particularly to the members of our community in that part of Metchosin, and we've got to honor our commitments to keep that as a buffer from the forces of the Langford development. But I also am trying to be practical and realistic that we've got people that will want to get in there, and some of those people will not obey conservation signs. So I think it behooves us to have a more fulsome discussion, and if Councillor Shukin would entertain that at his community planning portfolio meeting, that would be great. Yeah.
Sorry, just one
And we
comment.
can talk about the consultant and the $25,000 then.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. One thing that I've also heard too is, again, this concept of deja vu, that you're just simply following in the wake of past efforts to sell the buffer land.
Sure.
I don't think that is at all true. We've been, in terms of moving this forward in terms of public discussion, we've been very open about that, and we've done it right at the beginning of the process. We know from the last time those discussions were going on well ahead of when they were publicly announced. So that we're taking a very different approach. So, and again, we're going to do it again because we've, I think we're committing ourselves to having further discussion. So.
Okay. And it'll be taking into consideration not only the last document, but also the sort of review of the 10 meetings or 12 meetings that you had.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Gray.
And what I'd be looking for in that meeting is seeing if we can't get a feeling ourselves of what we mean by words like green space. What is that? Find out where people are at so we can understand better what we might do with other partners.
Anybody else wish to comment on this? So let's just have a resolution that we'll have a meeting, a review of the Bufferlands Working Group recommendations or options, and reviewing the allotment of the $25,000 for a consultant at the community planning meeting in the near future. Not next one, but in the near future.
And in terms, is that a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion.
Okay. Okay, I second.
Okay. I don't need to motivate on that. Did you want to discuss it? No?
I'll just say, the Bufferland Working Group did a ton of work, and I think it'd be great to explore the recommendations. I have a feeling a little bit like we're dropping them like a hot potato, and I think it'd be much better for us to get a look at it. I'm interested as best we can to preserve, district ownership of the land, as it's, pointed out in some of the correspondence here. At the same time, I think it's looking at what are the various options so that we get a clear view of things going forward. So I'll appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. I'm also wanting to reflect on what the Bufferland Working Group said, which was, hey, we can work on things simultaneously here. So it doesn't necessarily need to be all in one. If we can be learning together about the options and what things look like may inform us going forward.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. It's more of a question to everybody in terms of where we should now leave the option of the CRD. Should we park it until we've had this discussion, or should we, again, the word in tandem was thrown out a few times here.
What do you feel?
I feel it would be I feel it would be wise to allow staff to do some preliminary discussions with the CRD, particularly to have the CRD understand the ethic that, again, we're hearing from, first of all, the community, but again, as we talked about here at the table as well. Key thing is, we're not talking about selling the bufferland for development. So.
That's great.
Well, that's certainly one idea. The other thing would be, we're going to hit a fork in the road here relatively soon if we go through the process we're talking about. And that's going to be, what would an independent appraiser say this property is valued at? And as soon as we have that information, then we start to know what's real with the CRD in terms of price or cost if we went down that avenue. But secondly, we also know what have we got to offer in a partnership, say with the university or another body who's interested in partnering and managing with us. So we've heard a lot about that before, but I feel like if we had approved the motion that was before us, well, one of the first things that RCA would do is go get independent appraisals. Number one on his list to begin any sort of discussion. What are we bringing to it financially? So I don't mind freeing him up to get that done and working simultaneously. At least that gets us going, and then we can have our meeting and go from there.
Councillor Rapp.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Shukin, is that I don't see any reason why the two processes can't go on concurrently as discussions with the CRD as well as further consideration of the recommendations from the Bufferland Working Group. I kind of feel like because that development is going to be happening, and I just feel that time, not just because of the CRD, but time is kind of the essence, and I really feel that we need to make decisions. So the more action that we can take right now to actually move forward to some decisions on it, whichever way that goes, I think is important.
Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, excuse me, as I've already stated, certainly the Bufferland Working Group have already set out the stages of how they feel this should be done. I guess we could do opposite of everything that they've worked at. It's going to take years for that development to actually build all those houses out. We've only just said to them that, yeah, they could do the 34. That has nothing to do with us, really. They'll build when they're ready to build. And I don't see them building overnight. It probably will take more than just a few years to build it. It's a huge development, as we know, and they have some obstacles in their way. So it's not going to happen overnight, and I don't wish to feel pressured by that. I think that we need to do this very carefully. This is our property that we have negotiated through a tripartite agreement with First Nations and Langford through the Truth and Reconciliation process as well. Keeping that in mind, and that is something that the working group also kept in mind, which is why the ecological reserve fits so nicely with having a graduation of a buffer between urban and rural. And I was just looking yesterday actually about edge planning. Edge planning has more to do with agricultural and rural, and it's much bigger, it's 600 meters. However, it's the same concept, and at least there was some forethought to have a buffer, and a lot of it was as a result of the residents' community imploring having that space for the residents to have the buffer, for the creeks to have the protection that they have, and then we got the green space of 95. Hopefully one day we get that as well. So I think it's very important for us to keep our priorities in preserving the intent of what this piece of land was supposed to be for this community, when the rest of our borders, there's never been that forethought. So it is Metchosin's asset. And I don't think it's going to be destroyed overnight, and I don't think that the build out next door is going to happen overnight. It's already been 7 years, and there's still miles is up, and there's still no industrial park. They're still blasting daily.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree that if we were to pursue discussions with the CRD, we would absolutely need to have a third-party independent appraisal. But what price would be acceptable to us? So they had offered $274,000. Prices have gone up. If they offer us double, would that be palatable? Probably not. If they offered us $1 million, would that be worth it for us? Would that be, what would you do with the $1 million? Is there another piece of land that we're interested in buying? I'm not sure. Certainly, I agree that if we are to pursue sale to the CRD, we would need to get an independent appraisal of that land. I was more leaning towards pursuing the CRD in these, just to get more information before the mayor's tea. And I was convinced by the residents, and it wasn't all the same players. It was some new people that I had never met before who live up on the Neeld Road, who said, you promised to keep this as a buffer. And I still want to keep our promise that we want to mitigate those forces that are coming. What is the best way to do that? I'm not sure. But I want to be realistic that there will be people wanting to go there. So I appreciate that Councillor Shukin is willing to have this conversation about the buffer land working group's options, and then we can move forward from then. Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
We've got a motion on the table still.
Yeah. What's the motion? The motion is to talk, to do a session at the next upcoming community planning meeting, reviewing the buffer land working group's recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the next one.
Yeah.
Just sometime in the near future when you can gather all the information with Councillor Donaldson.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to vote on this one, but I have a subsequent motion to make.
Yeah. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed. Okay, go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Mary Lou. Again, further to the conversation we've been having, and again, this concept of working in tandem, I believe it would be wise to have our staff engage at a preliminary level, the CRD, and even do some of the work necessary in terms of getting an appraisal, and have staff undertake that in a reasonable time. And one of the things that is important with the appraisal is, engaging and finding out what, for example, the potential of park status for the buffer land, what that would mean to the appraisal, the presence of the detention pond commitment on the buffer land. So some of the mechanics around what's going to go into the appraisal and how the value is actually going to be determined, I think would be very helpful in actually testing both options, CRD and Metchosin as owners. Mm-hmm. So And one of the things too that I'm a little worried about, again, no disrespect to the process at all, but I feel like we need more information to make a further conversation meaningful. And that may come from engagement with the CRD. So I would move that council direct staff to have preliminary discussions with the Capital Regional District to discuss the disposition and management of the buffer land as a potential natural park with ecological terms and conditions acceptable to both the District of Metchosin and the CRD. Now, what I've changed, so moved, I've just actually changed preliminary discussions with explore the suggested options. So I believe that kind of weakens it. I don't think it's preliminary discussions is the key word. So moved.
This is moved by Councillor Schumann and seconded by Councillor Epp. Did you want to speak more about this?
No, just again to reiterate that point, I think that discussions with the CRD will help us inform our consideration of what the buffer land could be like and some of the challenges that we face both in exploring disposition to the CRD and also managing it ourselves. So.
Okay. Councillor Epp, go ahead.
Just one comment that I don't really think it's about money, regardless of an appraisal. Because for me, anyway, it's all about protection. It's not about money. It's how we can best protect it. That's what we need to find out.
Councillor Donaldson.
Well, it is an asset. So there is as we heard from Mr. Well earlier, our assets do have value. And right now it does have a different zoning, so I'd like to have an appraisal on that zoning as well.
So the CR2, CR3 that it's zoned at, and then if it was a designated park, what would it be worth?
Well, there's the two that Councillor Schumann just said, and I'm saying the third should be a consideration as well.
So I'm not clear what the two are. So an ecological reserve, a park, and the CR2, CR3. So.
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Donaldson raises an interesting, situation. I think we have to look at an appraisal on, its current zoning, but also what it would be like in kind of an end state in terms of a park. And I mean, we can call it a reserve, we can call it a protected buffer land, but essentially it is a park. So that I think is the status that we're seem to be moving to. Again, with the idea that it's protected from the potential of a rapid sale in the future. So does that reflect?
Oh. Okay. It's already, it has a zone, it has an assessed value, and I do believe we need to start there.
Yeah.
We haven't got it to the rezone part.
Yeah.
I mean, that is something to consider, yes. And we talked about different options in the report. We have no conclusion of what we're going to do yet.
Yeah.
So we do need to keep those options open, specifically if we're going to get another lowball offer as was in the past.
Yeah. I'm agreeing with Councillor Donaldson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
the appraisal is going to cost some money too. It's going to be upwards of $1,500, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
Just from experience I've had recently with some real estate, so they're not cheap, but it's the process.
Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, it would be an appraisal based on its current zoning of CR2, CR3, and an appraisal if it was designated park. So the last, the offer that was given to the CRD before was based on it that it was park, that it was never meant to be developed, so it was essentially park to them. So we would have those two scenarios, right? Councillor Donaldson, yes. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, does anybody else want to, go ahead.
Sure, I'm just going to suggest or make a motion for an amendment. So, and I don't know if I got your words exactly correct, but I just want to add in the suggested option to approach the CRD and other potential partners to discuss the disposition of the management as it goes. and then it gets, again, I could read the whole thing, and then conditions acceptable to both the district and the CRD, or another potential partner, with preference given to retaining title. So if someone will second the amendment, then yeah, thank you very much. So what the idea here is that, again, simultaneous, if we want to talk to the CRD, let's explore what else is out there, let's see what's going on. And I'm kind of with the working group at the moment. If we can preserve title, or retain title rather, I think that would be a very good thing. But without the appraisal and without knowing what other partners might be there, we're kind of waiting to figure it out. And so I feel like if we move with the CRD to chat with them, which I'm not opposed to finding out what they've got to say, I think finding out about what else might occur in line with what the working group has suggested, we'll be double tracking that. Feels better to me in terms of all the correspondence we received and the people who've spoken, the people who spent time in the working group.
Okay, does everybody understand the amendment? Motion for the amendment?
I can read it all the way through. The council directs staff to explore preliminary discussions.
I think I said just
to approach the CRD and other potential partners to discuss the disposition and management of the bufferland as a potential natural park with ecological terms and conditions acceptable to both the district and the CRD, or another potential partner, with preference given to retaining title. If I'm motivated, I'll just say part of it is I'm not sure the CRD can take this land and keep it as an ecological reserve, or the kind of words we're seeing in our documents. So I want to be actively looking elsewhere while we check out what the CRD can or will or is prepared to do.
Councillor Epping.
It's not that I really disagree with it, but I'm going to vote against it because I think that's asking a lot of staff right now. I think, if they work on this and get the options for this, and then we will be looking at the options. That's what we're going back to the working group for. So anyway, I'm just a bit concerned about having such a huge motion and a huge, working project for staff to do right now.
Okay. Councillor Dawson?
Yeah, that's definitely a concern, and I appreciate the sensitivity to that. There is no hurry for this. We do have time. That's what I want to emphasize. So we do it when staff can do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Shukin.
I find myself on the fence with the amendment. Realistically, I have a hard time understanding or thinking of who a viable partner would be. What really the challenge is with the bufferland is actually the operations side of it. It's not the ownership, and that's so often where you would have the BC Parks Foundation we've heard recently. It's about helping secure the asset, and Habitat Acquisition Trust, again, securing the assets. The management and the operations is a whole other ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, yes, the CRD or the local government, that they have the expertise in that. There was a discussion about, Parks Canada being involved in the urban park. Well, that is in some ways quite contrary to what the vision of the bufferland is like in terms of limited access. So at least my understanding of where the urban parks have gone. So I too am going to vote against this as well. So the amendment.
Well, let me see if I can convince you to otherwise. I guess what I'm concerned about staff work as well, and what they're capable of doing with what we've got so far. But we do have very capable people in the community who I'm sure could assist. Our new planner, I think, is arriving shortly. We've got the Bilson Corridor project, which has been going on, and people are working on that. We also have some, I think, people in the Bufferland Working Group who might be able to put shoulder to wheel on this. In terms of the word preliminary discussions, I like the words, but what you're starting is a negotiation. And so while protection of the object, money is is what we talked about to some degree. And so I think having, checking out what else is possible, either to put it to bed, as per Councillor Shukin, maybe there's nobody. Let's find out, let's get some able people on this helping our staff and see if we can't figure that out. So we can take it off the table and say, well, there is no other alternative. Bufferland Working Group, there are no alternatives. Otherwise, we're kind of still sitting there saying, well, there's this other alternative, but we're not prepared to look at it. We're just going to talk to one group. And I think it puts us in an awkward position for preliminary discussions, and also sets us up to still have a question there, which we will then be returning to before we can do anything with the CRD.
Okay. Enough discussion. I'm going to call the question only on the amendment right now. So all in favor of the amendment? 2. Councillor Gray, Councillor Donaldson in favor, all opposed. Shukin at little opposed. Motion fails. Going back to the original motion, Councillor Gray, Shukin. So this is the original motion as you proposed without the additional partners. Can you read it out again?
Okay. That council direct staff to begin preliminary discussions about the suggested approach. Begin preliminary discussions on the suggested option to approach the Capital Regional District to discuss the disposition and management of the bufferland as a potential natural park with ecological terms and conditions acceptable to both the District of Metchosin and the CRD.
Okay, thank you. So that has been first and second. Councillor Gray.
Yeah. Are we still discussing the disposition and management of the bufferland?
Yes.
That's what it's in the motion, yes.
Yes.
Anybody wish to speak on this? Go ahead, Councillor.
Well, point made a moment ago, but I think it puts us in an awkward position, both as CRD but also our community. So I'll vote against the motion.
Okay. Okay. So, looks like we can call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? So, Councillor Shukin and Epp in favor, Gray, Donaldson, Little opposed. Okay, so the next step will be the meeting at the community planning to discuss the working group. Perhaps you could also send a notice to the working group to ask them to attend that meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And then the third thing was the Parks and Trails Master Plan PTASC input.
Could I just ask a question? The bufferland working group doesn't exist anymore, so we should be clear about that. I think it ended.
We
So
didn't
it'd be
dissolve
invited.
it. We didn't dissolve it, actually.
So it's still working?
We did.
Did we dissolve it?
I just want to be, just so that we can free people up and they can come as who they are and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If they're coming as an advisory select committee, that's a different
No,
interaction.
I mean, I think it's just polite to remind them that a meeting will be held to discuss
of course.
that.
Yeah.
And then perhaps at that planning committee meeting, there could be a motion to dissolve it or continue it, one or the other, if it hasn't been dissolved already. Just so we don't, just to be polite and respectful to those people.
Okay. The Parks and Trails Master Plan.
Yeah, that future updates to the Parks and Trails Master Plan be informed by the active transportation planning process currently underway, and then an update to the Parks and Trails Master Plan be launched in the fall of 2024.
Okay. This is moved by
So-
Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor F. Discussion. Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Gray.
I was just wondering when council is actually going to have an opportunity to speak with the consultant of Urban Works that's working on this AT plan. Do we know?
Good idea. CAO Payette, when will council have the opportunity to speak to the consultant Urban Works?
During the public consultation phase.
Yeah, during the public consultation phase.
After fact finding, not the preliminary work.
Okay. Okay.
So we're spending $75,000 on this project. I think it would be good for the 37,500, but from grant 37,500 from ourselves. It seems to me that it would be good to see them early on, or at least to run over that proposal where we're going with it. So I would certainly appreciate that as a member of council.
Okay. So how about if we talk about that, Bob, you and I, and we'll talk about where they are in their phases. We'll talk about that this week. Okay. Councillor Donaldson?
Yes, so through the chair to Councillor Shukin. So are you suggesting that the master plan be a part of the consultation with this, or is that going to come later?
What has happened is we have a member of PTASC who's plugged into the process. We've asked for regular updates in terms of the active transportation planning process. And it's bound to cover roadside trails. There's quite a big overlap on the parks and trail side. But sorry, on the trail side, not the park side. So what I've proposed and talked about is doing the work on the AT side and then building on that on the park side later in the fall. Doing the two processes simultaneously is, I think, it'd be redundant. So.
Okay, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, so I did read the PTASC meetings, and that gave us a lot of information about what's going on and tweaked my interest in terms of hearing more from the actual consultants. But what I read, or I think what I read was that the active transportation plan will address things like roadside trails, crosswalks, bikes, wheelchairs, ways of moving around. And I thought, okay, if they're doing that and they're going to do a big public consultation, if it's going to be like over a year, there'll be a number of consultations and lots of people involved and getting a sense of priorities. When that's done, I'm thinking, without having spoken to the consultants, that they will have completed the master plan for our roadside trails by the time they're done through all the consultation, all the work. So that'll be done, and then what PTASC would be left with, and I don't mean left with in the negative, but could be spending their times on then, is the park trails, the short connectors, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, we prior to meeting the active transportation plan people, we thought, well, let's they'll work together. But I'm almost thinking they're two separate jobs here. And if the connected for sure. I mean, how do people move from one park to the other in active transportation as compared to in a car? But if I got it right, then I would suggest that the motion's okay, but just knowing that that's really what's happening as one group, the active transportation consultants are dealing with the roadside trail question with all the other things they're dealing with. And then PTASC would get going in the fall on the parks one, being informed by whatever is going on the roadside trails.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Right. I think that's, yeah.
Super.
That's the plan, yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so I'll call the question on that one. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so we have next the topic of biosolids. So we have a recommendation from MEASC regarding biosolids. Did you want to go forward with that? Or do
Sure.
you need to have a significant discussion about it?
Pardon me?
I think we need to have a significant discussion about it.
Certainly, so I can move the motion, and if someone seconds, then I would motivate it. And the motion is, it comes from MEASC and through Environment Committee, that Council let the Capital Regional District know that the sewage biosolids are not welcome on Metchosin's agricultural fields and forests.
Okay, and a motion from Councillor Gray,
I'll second for discussion.
seconded by Councillor Shukin. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I think we all know, we heard a little bit from the residents tonight, and we have quite a bit of correspondence. The biosolids that are currently produced out of the sewage system at the CRD include fluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Those are the PFAs, the forever chemicals, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, and other chemicals of emerging concerns. And so all of those things mean that there's some risk to land application of this product for land itself and potentially for agriculture, but also for the aquifer. So in 2021, Council of Metchosin, and so Mayor Little and Councillor Epp would have been involved. Council supported a joint letter to the province to limit land application of biosolids and create more discussion on the topic. Subsequently, Mayor Rands voted at the CRD to ban land application, and that CRD motion carried. Presently, though, things are changed again. A lot's going on since then. And the CRD board is now again considering land application as one option of disposal. And we heard a little bit from Joe Percival tonight of the history there and what's going on. We didn't learn about the public input for the biosolid question until just the day before, 2 days before the public input was closed the last time. And so neither MEASC nor Council got on to that. But there's a new consultation underway, and I'm hoping that our residents will play a role in that. But I'm anxious as well that Council make its views known at the CRD. And of course, when you're saying don't do something, well, what could be done? And I think when we talk about it, we've heard again from residents tonight, the options that are under discussion at the CRD, which have been described previously by the mayor at Council, include thermal treatment, in other words, super high temperatures. And there's even something called gasification, where the product is completely broken down, except for the heavy metals. So the toxins are destroyed, but the heavy metals, I gather, fall out of it. And you're left with this biochar, which is a different substance entirely. It's going to take some time to get there. And the reason why we wanted to bring this forward from MEASC originally was, well, it may take some time, but we don't think it's a good idea in the meantime to spread these around. And in fact, looking at the CRD materials, you see a lot about the benefits of spreading it, but very little about the risks, raising red flags for those of us who are evidence-based thinkers. So I'll stop there. I have more to say, but I'll let others jump in.
Councillor Shukin.
I don't have anything right now. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just don't really agree with the wording of it. I would rather have something like the District of Metchosin does not approve the land application of biosolids, period.
Okay. Councillor.
Yeah, I'm a little iffy about the wording as well. Particularly, I understand that there's a discussion underway, but there's no proposal to put biosolids on Metchosin land right now. And Mayor Little, I think I valued the discussion, the comments you made a number of months ago, because you've been party to some of this. But I'm happy to, express the fact that we don't believe biosolids have a place here in Metchosin, particularly at the present time when there is concern about risk. But again, I just want to reflect that there's no proposal to put biosolids here in Metchosin.
So, I'll vote against this motion. The question I ask is who said or asked for biosolids to be distributed in Metchosin? Nobody's asked for it. They haven't asked me, they haven't asked staff, they haven't asked our CAO. So I think there's a bit of fear mongering going on here and misinformation. To my knowledge, the CRD have not asked for any land application in Metchosin. And Metchosin is part of the CRD. In 2011, there was a ban on application of biosolids on land. I would be in favor of sending a letter to the chair of the CRD stating our support for the CRD's ban of land application biosolids from 2011. Thank them for their concerted efforts to produce long-term biosolids management strategy on May 8th, and I'll go into that. With the preferred option of thermal processing, and looking forward to the results of a third-party literature review that the CRD is engaging in, and the province has also expressed interest in that literature review because there's some more information on these forever chemicals and the legal opinion that will be forthcoming. So on May 8th, the CRD did outline their long-term biosolids management strategy. They're required to submit a long-term management strategy to the province, to the BC Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy by June 18th as a requirement for the CRD's commitment under the Core Area Liquid Waste Management Plan. So the CRD is continuing to explore biosolids beneficial use opportunities with First Nations as well, because we've got to consult that have already expressed an interest both in region and out of region, and to address any concern the First Nations may have regarding the beneficial use options. The long-term biosolids management strategy and portfolio of options have just been laid out, and I'll address these, and they're asking for a public consultation into June. And so the long-term management plan is, the preferred option is the advanced thermal option. That constitutes the preferred long-term solutions and will be pursued concurrently with the options in the other tiers. Current projects include develop a demonstration facility for the advanced thermal processing as planned. Outcomes from the demonstration project will serve as the basis for the scaled up long-term solution. The second tier option is out of region compliance options. Constitute measures that the CRD will utilize to ensure regulatory compliance is continuously achieved while in Tier 2. So according to the province's guidelines, we need to have the option of land application in those, despite if we don't agree with it. That's our obligation from the province, is to consider it. And so the options in priority order would be industrial land reclamation, such as mine, and quarry sites, acknowledging that some reclaimed sites may eventually have pasture land and later use. Forest fertilization, production of biosolids growing medium or feedstock in soil production, partnerships with established biosolids programs, to continue alternative fuel combustion in the cement manufacturing facility in Richmond, and prior to that, prioritize this option when available. So that's our short-term management, was sending it to the cement manufacturing facility in Richmond to use as a fuel. The problem is they've had numerous problems with their operations. And so we've been ready to send the Class A biosolids, and then they say we can't receive them, so then we're stuck. We've got to do something with them, and they've resorted to landfilling some of them. And then the Tier 3 is the in-region contingency options that constitute contingency options to ensure compliance with regulatory requirements. The CRD would implement the Tier 2 or Tier 3 option on a contingency basis only when options in the other tiers, the thermal processing or the outer region compliance options, are unavailable. So these would include industrial land reclamation, forest fertilization, and maintain the option of biosolids application in engineered cover systems at Heartland Landfill as an emergency support option. So what I think is really important to remember is the production, the distribution, the storage, the sale, the usage of biosolids are all regulated by the BC Organic Matter Recycling Regulations, or the OMAR regulations, which includes minimum standards for biosolid product quality and the land application practices. So the biosolids are characterized as Class A under this section of OMAR, which regulate the production and beneficial use of biosolids. So it is a requirement of the province that we have in our long-term management plan options for land application. That doesn't mean that they are going to be doing that. That is one of the options. And I reiterate that nobody has asked the District of Metchosin to spread biosolids here. I'm not in favor of spreading biosolids, particularly because we really don't understand what these forever chemicals do. And they're called forever chemicals because they accumulate. They're never broken down except for by thermal processing. They're never broken down, and so they accumulate and bioaccumulate in the body. So we're really worried about children with young developing brains, for instance. In saying that, they have tested the Heartland landfill where some biosolids have been distributed, and according to the appendix of the review of what is in there, the forever chemicals were at very low, if not undetectable levels. But what was found was some of the pharmaceuticals. Yeah. So I'm against land application of biosolids because we really don't know. What they can do. So while I am in favor of expressing our concerns to the CRD, I think I would do it in a more positive way, and to acknowledge that that we support the CRD's ban of land application. Thank them for their concerted effort on developing a long-term management plan, and looking forward to the results of the literature review by a scientist with expertise in the field, and to the legal opinion. That's what I would be in favor of. Go ahead.
So, Mayor Little, after hearing everything you said, I actually do think it's important that we do build into the motion that biosolids are not welcome in Metchosin, and add all the rest of what you just said there. Even the fact that it sounds like there's certain options that we have to keep open as contingencies, and I think it would be good to, again, as we communicate this to the CRD, to build the, what we're saying at the table, I think, is deep misgivings about the application of biosolids. But
so I'm interested very much in people having deep misgivings but not prepared to pass a resolution, because you can have all the misgivings you like, but our only powers are bylaws and resolutions, as we know. So without those, we're not really taking a position at all, are we? I get the point that, well, why not wait until the votes happen at the CRD and they've approved land application within the CRD, and then we'll oppose it. Well, in fact, the CRD right now is asking for our view. They're saying, they're putting it out publicly, saying, people, please tell us what you think. So it seems to me now's the time to comment, not after the vote happens, not after the contracts are signed with the truckers and the dumping starts up in Ash Mountain or something. I mean, the point is, people put this stuff on the trucks and away it goes. I thought we were a group of people who were concerned about the aquifer. I thought we were people who were concerned about the land and the environment here. I'm quite taken aback by what I'm hearing tonight. I think that there is a reason to say no. If land application goes forward, do you think it's going to go on the boulevards in Victoria? No, it's going to go to the rural areas. And doesn't Metchosin have one of the largest land bases in the CRD with our forest and our agricultural land? If there's nowhere else to put it in the CRD, particularly, and I suppose a sandwich way in that direction. But the forces there are very strong opposed to this at the moment. We haven't had the same vocal nature here, and I was looking for the local government to take a stand on it. I'd be open to revisions to the motion or whatever. I think it was quite noticeable. And by the way, I'm looking at the document here from the CRD: industrial land reclamation, fuel for combustion, forest fertilization, gasification. We're running through these again. Bagged fertilizer for residential use, fertilizer for agriculture, landscaping. This is land application and some other options. The difficulty they've got is a pile of this stuff sitting there, and it's growing every day, and they got to figure out what to do between now and then. And I'm not excited about having. It's a shitty situation, right? It's a real bummer. but let's say that we don't want to have it here in Metchosin.
I completely agree with Councillor Gray. What I guess I'm asking to add to the motion, first of all, which can begin with a clear statement about our opposition to having biosolids put on Metchosin's fields and forests, is again wanting to see the process go through, wanting to again have the technical experts review. Again, a nod to the process that's underway right now, but again, clear statement that we don't want biosolids on our fields and forests. So,
kind of a drafting question.
Pardon?
Kind of a drafting question for whoever would pen the letter. Can I ask a different question? Mayor, you were saying that there's fear-mongering and misinformation. Could you explain that a bit better? I'm not sure what fear-mongering is going on here.
We have all these people upset about land application of biosolids on Metchosin land, and nobody has said that they're going to do that. And I just want to make it clear to the community that nobody has asked us yet to apply biosolids in Metchosin. And since that MEASC meeting, there is a long-term management plan that has been submitted. And the CRD is working very hard to receive public input, not only on the plan, but also a plan for the future. And I think I'm still going to vote against the motion because I'll propose another motion after. I think it would be better to be more positive about it. You could clearly state that the application of biosolids in Metchosin is not welcome, but I think we can include other things about their long-term management plan, the literature review, and the legal review.
Well, just to, for the record, I don't believe there's been any misinformation provided. The CRD is seeking input on the issues of what to do and the whole range of activities. And I think what you're hearing loud and clear from some residents of Metchosin, there may be some who support spreading biosolids here, but people are saying, we've heard about this, we don't really want it here, thank you very much. I don't call that fear-mongering, neither is it misinformation, with respect.
And I propose an amendment to the current motion. And simply at the end, so read the motion. The council let the Capital Regional District know the biosolids are not welcome in Metchosin's agricultural fields and forests. And, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to say, start again. The council draft a letter to the Capital Regional District advising that biosolids are not welcome in Metchosin's agricultural fields and forests, and also address the ongoing process that is underway on this matter, as in biosolids. So again, this will give the drafter some leeway in terms of like addressing some of the process questions, which I think you're raising. Not questions, but process elements. So,
Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, I just have a question for Councillor Shukin, to not limit it to just agricultural fields and forests, but all land in Metchosin.
Yes.
sure.
I mean, it could end up in the buffer land. It could end up on our roadside trails or roads, shoulders.
Yeah.
Just no land application.
Okay, I haven't had a seconder, so let me revise this motion, or let me, that council draft a letter to advise the Capital Regional District that biosolids are not welcome on Metchosin's land, agricultural fields, forests, or other lands. Sorry.
Why not just say in Metchosin?
In Metchosin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are welcome in Metchosin. Thank you very much, Councillor Rath. And that the letter include comments on other elements related to the process, to the ongoing biosolid process underway right now.
And the literature review and the legal opinion.
Yeah. And, well, that can be just kind of bundled into the process element. Yeah.
Okay. So this is amendment to the motion.
So moved. So.
Moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Epp. More discussion?
I hate to say it, but I'm not clear on the motion. Sorry about that. Maybe we could ask, is that right back?
Right. Okay, so in terms of making the motion, if I could, I think it's simplistic to simply say right now that we don't want biosolids. That's the key thing. However, there's a larger process underway by which the issue is being adjudicated right now, including some of the preferred options, as in thermal disposal of these. So I think we can lend our support to that with a broader letter. In some ways, Councillor Graham, taking up your thought that we can,
I'm good with it. I just didn't get the wording.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay.
Just the wording of the motion.
Fair enough. Thanks to Councillor App for making it simpler. So, great. So moved.
Okay,
Second.
so this is moved by Councillor Schuman, second by
Oh, sure.
Councillor App.
So I just didn't get what I was just asking was, what is the motion?
Okay.
Do you want to repeat it back again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Just to know
So-
what we're voting on.
Do you want me to take a crack at it? So, moving that council send a letter to the chair of the CRD with the points that biosolids are not welcome in Metchosin, to acknowledge that we support the 2011 resolution of the ban on the application of biosolids in CRD within the CRD. Acknowledge their efforts for the long-term management strategy and with their preferred option of thermal processing. And finally, we're looking forward to the results of the third-party literature review and the legal opinion that will be forthcoming. That would be an amendment.
Thank you for reading it out.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's okay to both you and Councillor Epp? Yeah.
So can I ask, if we had a legal opinion that said it's legal to put it on the land, would we say that's okay then? Does a legal opinion matter to us?
Yeah, I think.
It doesn't to me.
Yeah, the legal opinion matters to me. I think more information is better, and I won't disregard it in my deliberations, absolutely.
Okay. And can I ask you, I mean, you know the most about this, when will the thermal processing be available at the CRD? What's the timeline?
Yeah, it's a long timeline,
How
unfortunately.
many years?
Oh, I don't know how many years, probably 5 to 6,
I think I read 10.
possibly.
So that's why we're talking about this today. It's a long way off still.
Yeah, it is the long-term management plan.
And so for us, I think getting the issue about it, we don't want it spread here in the meantime, is kind of important. I'm not speaking against the motion, but thanks for that.
And I think this is a good motion because all of us at this table have committed to the importance of our natural environment and to the aquifer. I mean, that's why Councillor Donaldson and I are going through all these meetings to talk about the aquifer and its inability to supply some Metchosin residents with water. We want that water to be impeccable for drinking and safe for everybody in Metchosin. So we all are concerned about the aquifer and our environment.
I'm pleased to hear that. It didn't sound that way a few moments ago with words like misinformation and fear-mongering. Marilyn, I hope that if we pass this motion that you will fight for us at the CRD to stop from having biosolids put on the land, both in Metchosin but anywhere in the CRD.
Well, I've already said that I will vote for not applying biosolids on the land. I will note, though, that some of the discussions and the decisions don't involve us. So they are a weighted participant vote, and we are not a participant in the paying for the preparation of the biosolids and the solid waste manufacturing plant or processing plant in Esquimalt. So some of the motions or some of the items I can speak to it, but I can't vote on.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Donaldson.
Well, we got a motion.
Yep, we've got a motion. Did you want to speak to it?
I just had, after the motion, another comment
Sure.
in relation to it.
Sure. Okay, if everybody's ready, I'll call the motion, call the question on the amendment to the motion. right? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nobody's opposed. Okay, so on the main motion, it is, what is the main motion?
If I may, that is effectively the same motion, so.
Sorry?
What you read out,
It encapsulates that
that's correct,
motion.
you've done the whole
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but I guess we can vote on the main motion now if you like.
Yeah, so it will encapsulate that the biosolids are not welcome in Metchosin. That's the motion. Okay, I'll call the motion on that. Okay.
The amended
You've got-
motion.
Well, we've already passed the amended motion that the letter will go through. That I don't think we need to have this motion, actually. I think it sort of muddies things. Tina, can you help me out here?
Typically, if it's something controversial, then you would have to, call the amendment and then call the main motion. But if all council agrees, it can just be one motion.
Okay, so we'll take that as one motion. Okay. Okay. Councillor Donaldson, you wanted to address some points.
Yes, so you're saying that the CRD is going to be looking for input from the public?
Yes. Right now.
Right now, so can we have that put on our district website and fan it out to the residents?
Sure.
So I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, there's a link that is provided on the CRD website.
I support that.
Okay. Everybody's okay with that? Anything else, Councillor Donaldson?
No, that's great.
Okay. Okay, good. Let's move on. Then, Councillor Epp, on page 33, we have the business arising from the Public Works meeting of May 13th.
Right, this is to approve a grant application to continue all the good work that Biosolids has been doing in the community. So I will move that council support the Community Emergency Preparedness CEPF Fire Smart Community Funding Grant application for 2025.
Second.
This is moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Nobody opposed. Thank you.
Very little.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we allow this meeting to continue past 10 p.m.
Yep, this is a motion by Councillor Schuppen, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we've got the Metchosin Building Inspection Department on page 35. These reports we get monthly. Any comments on this one? Move for receipt. Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we also have the District of Metchosin Public Communication Report Statistics. Moved by the same parties. Yeah. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have correspondence for action. We have a letter from the City of Langford on page 39. There was a resolution that was passed by the City of Langford that council directs staff to send letters to the mayors of Colwood, Town of View Royal, District of Highlands, Souk, Metchosin chiefs, and councils of the Sherla First Nations, Malahat First Nations, asking them for their continued advocacy for the expansion of the Capital Regional District Trail Network on the West Shore. And so they're not asking us to send letters, they're just asking us for our continued advocacy for the expansion of the Capital Regional District Trail Networks on the West Shore. And so you're probably thinking, well, what extensions, for instance, Souk, even though they pay into the trails master, the Galloping Goose master plan and the revisions that we'll be doing, the Galloping Goose doesn't go into Souk. It skirts on the outside of Souk. So
Leach Town.
yeah, so it would be nice if it was extended into Souk. It'd be nice if we could have an extension somewhere in Metchosin as well, and for some of the other West Shore partners. So keep that in mind in terms of the advocacy.
you want a motion, or is that something that you'll carry forward at the CRD without resolution?
Yeah, I think I'll just carry it forward. Everybody's in favor of that? Yeah. Okay. And then on page 41, we have a letter from Minister Farnworth, Public Safety and Solicitor General regarding concerns of costs to other municipalities as a result of the Surrey transition from the RCMP to the local police force. And in essence, what Mr. Farnworth says, sort of, is that the extra costs won't be passed down to the other municipalities. However, they have committed to 150 million to the Surrey, the city of Surrey, for their transition, so that it'll be on the taxpayers' back. So all of us will be de facto paying for that transition. So I didn't know, but I guess there has been some discussions that it would be borne by the other municipalities that have RCMP as their police service. Any questions regarding that? So I'll take a motion to receive.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Schuppen, second by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, and then that's it, as far as I know. We have all of the correspondence that we have in 7A and 7B. Those we've seen, and thank the community members for their input. Okay, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Schuppen, second by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.